Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the fascinating psychology behind extreme relationship drama, and let's be honest, the incredibly satisfying delivery of karmic justice. We've synthesized a collection of absolutely wild, real-life narratives from our source material to figure out exactly how betrayal happens, and more importantly, how the tables eventually turn. So why do we absolutely love seeing arrogant people get their overdue comeuppance? I mean, we all feel it, right? When someone breaks the social contract, whether that's an incredibly entitled family member or a deeply deceitful partner, it creates this massive psychological imbalance. Delivering karma isn't just about being petty. It's really about restoring order and establishing self-worth. And today, we're going to look at some staggering examples of this from our sources. We'll be walking through 6 unbelievable, true-to-source stories today. We'll start with the anatomy of a revenge story, move right into the toxic in-law trap, and then look at betrayal from within. After that, we'll examine the turning point, the actual delivery of karmic justice, and finally wrap up with the value of boundaries. All right, let's get right into Section 1, Anatomy of a Revenge Story, the universal pattern of hubris. What is absolutely fascinating here is that every single villain in these stories follows the exact same 4-step playbook of toxic entitlement. First up, there's unprovoked hostility, basically attacking our protagonist out of sheer insecurity or greed. Second comes the breaking point, which is where the protagonist realizes diplomacy has totally failed. Third is the trap, where they stop reacting emotionally and start strategizing. And finally, the fallout, where the antagonist's own hubris literally brings them down. That brings us to Section 2, the toxic in-law trap, sabotage from the outside. Let's examine our first major category of betrayal. This perfectly illustrates how deep insecurity manifests. From our sources, we've identified 3 distinct profiles. First, we have the jealous mother-in-law. In Amy's case, her highly educated background threatened her in-laws so deeply that they actually stooped to hiding a live caterpillar in her shoe, triggering a severe allergic reaction. Next is the saboteur. In Megan's case, her mother-in-law literally teamed up with an obsessed childhood friend to attempt a kidnapping right before her honeymoon in Italy. I know, it's wild. And finally, the elitist. Marina's mother-in-law constantly belittled Marina's working-class background, claiming she just wasn't good enough for her son. To give you a real sense of the sheer entitlement we're dealing with here, just imagine skipping your own son's wedding to go on a leisure trip and then justifying it to the bride with this jaw-dropping quote. I would have attended if Amy wasn't the bride. Yep, that is exactly what Amy's mother-in-law did. That complete and utter lack of accountability perfectly sets the stage for the karmic justice that's bound to follow. Now, for Marina, the endless hostility from her elitist mother-in-law came crashing down thanks to a DNA realization that uncovered a massive 30-year secret. Marina's father, who happens to be a genetics professor, noticed that Marina's fiancé Travis had a dominant genetic trait, a widow's peak, that neither of his wealthy parents actually had. Well, it turned out the mother-in-law had an affair with her husband's assistant 3 decades prior. This revelation proved the elitist mother-in-law was a total hypocrite, leading to an immediate divorce and a very swift fall into the exact poverty she used to mock. But what happens when the villain isn't just an extended family member, but the person sharing your bed? Let's look at Section 3, Betrayal from Within, when partners show their true colors. The crucial turning point in these relationship breakdowns is always the utter lack of empathy. This is perfectly captured by Lisa's ex-husband, Bob. While Lisa was suffering from debilitating morning sickness and going through a really difficult postpartum recovery, Bob just completely checked out. He refused to help with household chores or change even a single diaper. Eventually, he complained about his hangover while demanding she wait on him, callously telling her, pregnancy isn't an illness, you keep pretending to be sick so people will help you. His complete failure to act as a real partner totally sealed his fate. Or take Sophia's case, where the betrayal was a horrifying double-cross, involving her verbally abusive fiancé, Tom, and her very own younger sister, Lucy. After enduring months of Tom calling her an old hag and constantly putting her down just to elevate his own ego, Tom callously dumped Sophia for her 28-year-old sister right before their wedding. He seriously thought he had upgraded, leaving Sophia completely devastated. But eventually, every single protagonist reaches their absolute limit. This brings us to Section 4, the turning point, shifting the power dynamic. Just take Leela's story. She caught her husband cheating with her own mother. Yes, you heard that right, her own mother. When Leela confronted them, her cheating mother uttered the words, "I'll squeeze out every last penny." She refused to divorce Leela's wheelchair-bound father just so she could keep his massive inheritance when he passed away. That level of sheer greed triggered a brilliant defensive strategy. Because what the mother didn't realize was that Leela's father had secretly signed a divorce paper years prior. They set up the perfect legal trap. They played the long game, letting the mother truly believe she was legally secure. When the father sadly passed away, the mother showed up to the funeral practically demanding her payout. And that's exactly when Leela executed step 3, revealing the pre-filed divorce papers. This legally rendered the mother a complete stranger and stripped the betrayers of any financial reward whatsoever. Now for everyone's favorite part of the explainer. Section 5, Delivering Karmic Justice, the Satisfying Snapback. Let's revisit Megan's story. Her stalker friend Catherine and her toxic mother-in-law went from brazenly wearing a white dress to Megan's wedding and trying to ruin her honeymoon to facing absolute ruin. The police completely foiled the kidnapping plot. On top of that, Catherine's own wealthy fiancé investigated her past, dumped her, and then sued her for $20,000 in damages, leaving her drowning in debt. As for the mother-in-law, she earned herself a restraining order and lost access to her son and grandchild forever. And remember Sophia, whose fiancé dumped her for her own sister? Well, Sophia weaponized the PA system at her sister's wedding. She had secretly recorded Tom's previous abusive tirades where he called her an old hag and literally begged her to marry him. During the wedding reception, those recordings were broadcast to the entire venue. Tom was publicly exposed as an abuser and lost his professional standing. And the sister was so humiliated, she divorced him almost instantly. Talk about instant reputational destruction. $0. That is exactly how much money Kathy's entitled in-laws and Amy's bankrupt in-laws managed to extort once firm boundaries were finally drawn. Kathy's in-laws tried to hijack her luxury apartment, only to learn Kathy was actually the wealthy investor paying for it, resulting in them being kicked straight to the curb. And Amy's in-laws, whose business failed during the pandemic, came begging for cash after previously disowning her. Both groups got exactly $0. The ultimate lesson from synthesizing all of these source narratives brings us to our final section, Section 6, the value of boundaries, protecting your peace. If you take anything away from this explainer today, let it be these 3 principles for neutralizing toxic entitlement in your own life. First, record everything. Document the behavior, just like Sophia and Lila did. The truth is always your best weapon. Second, establish firm legal and emotional walls. Whether it's a restraining order, a secret divorce filing, or simply saying no, you have to make that boundary impenetrable. And third, trust the consequences of bad behavior. You rarely have to ruin toxic people yourself. If you just step back and protect your peace, their own terrible choices will do it for them. As we wrap up, I want you to ask yourself a question. Who in your life might need a firmer boundary today? Take a look at the people around you and consider just how quickly the tables turn when you finally decide you've had enough. You have the power to stop being a character in someone else's drama and start writing your own peaceful resolution. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and remember, always protect your peace.